I think it's absolutely extraordinary that any right-minded thinking parent should believe that it was the would have been an alternative. In the heart of Buckingham Palace whispers of betrayal and looming chaos ripple through its gilded halls. King Charles, now facing the twilight of his reign, has unveiled a final wish so explosive that it threatens to tear his sons apart. Princess Anne, the ever loyal pillar of the monarchy, has taken it upon herself to reveal this bombshell, one that could forever alter the fate of the royal family. But, as the truth unravels, can the royal brothers survive the storm that's about to break? Let's find out. A royal legacy on the brink. Balmoral Castle stood cloaked in shadow, its ancient walls whispering secrets under the dim light of a fading Scottish dusk. The grounds, usually brimming with life, were unsettlingly quiet, as if holding its breath. Inside the secluded West Wing, King Charles Roman III lay beneath layers of ornate linens, his once powerful presence now withered. Official statements spoke of routine checkups, but the truth was far graver. The king was dying. The secrecy surrounding his condition was intentional. Behind Balmoral's heavy doors, a final command was being prepared, one that could alter the fate of the monarchy. This wasn't merely a request. It was a decree, an ultimatum that would either bind the fractured Windsor family or see it crumble. Princess Anne was the first to know. Summoned to his bedside, she found Charles barely able to speak. His voice a whisper against the silence. His message, though faint, was clear: bring them together, or let the line end with me. It was not just a wish, but a declaration of survival, steeped in the fear of a legacy slipping away. Charles's sons, Prince Harry and Prince William, had to reconcile, not quietly or through secret negotiations, but in a grand public gesture of unity. A mere appearance side by side wouldn't suffice. The cracks needed to be mended for all to see, and Princess Anne, armed with her brother's dying wish, was now tasked with making it happen. Without delay, she assembled the senior royals in a secluded chamber within Balmoral. The atmosphere was suffocating, thick with unspoken tension. There were no cameras, no aides, just the airs and the ghosts of old grievances. Anne's voice was firm as she delivered Charles's decree. The monarchy, she declared, could not survive fractured. Reconciliation was not just necessary, it was non-negotiable. Harry and Meghan were to return to the fold, or face the consequence of disinheritance and the loss of every title. The reactions were swift and sharp. Prince William stood rigid by the fireplace, eyes fixed on the flames, jaw clenched with years of restrained resentment. Prince Harry, flown in from California under the pretense of a family gathering, sat stiffly, arms crossed, his gaze hard and unyielding. Though Meghan was absent, her presence lingered in every word spoken. For Charles, reconciliation meant accepting her fully, an idea William visibly struggled to embrace. "You want me to pretend everything's fine." William's voice was tight, brimming with disbelief. "I can't do that." "Not to the public, not to my children." Anne's eyes were steely. "It's not about pretending, it's about preserving what's left," she replied, her words slicing through the room with chilling finality. Outside the castle walls, speculation raged. Reporters swarmed Balmoral, their cameras pointed like rifles, hungry for a glimpse of the truth. Whispers of the king's declining health and Harry's unexpected return only stoked the fire. But within those stone walls, the fate of the Windsor legacy dangled by a thread, teetering between unity and collapse. Locked away from prying eyes, William and Harry faced each other in silence, the air thick with tension. No embraces, no tears, just words brittle and sharp. Harry's voice wavered as he asked, "Do you even remember life before all this?" Before the cameras, the titles before Mom died, William's silence was heavy, his gaze unyielding. Finally, he answered with one word, "Yes." It sliced through the air like a knife, revealing wounds neither had fully healed. But behind the king's bold choice lies an even deeper story, one rooted in history and heartbreak. To understand the king's final wish, we have to go back to a time when royalty was built on unexpected terms. Keep watching. The king's silent struggle. In the shadowy corridors of Balmoral Castle, whispers of routine checkups and stress-related fatigue masked a far darker reality. Behind the towering stone walls, King Charles Roman III lay confined in the secluded West Wing, his health slipping away faster than the public dared to imagine. Outside, polished press releases assured the world of the king's steady recovery. Yet inside the truth whispered through the halls like a ghostly secret. The king was deteriorating and time was slipping through his fingers. His mornings were marked by silence. Sometimes he could barely manage a whisper, some days he did not speak at all. Palace staff moved quietly, their footsteps hushed, their voices softened to murmurs, as if even the walls themselves might betray the secret they all carried. The air was heavy with tension, the kind that clung to every corner and shadowed every face. The usually bustling kitchens had fallen silent, with cooks and maids moving like shadows, their eyes cast downward, their voices never rising above a whisper. Everyone knew, yet no one spoke of it. The king was running out of time. Only a handful of people knew the full extent of his suffering. His private physician arrived each morning, before the sun had risen, slipping through the north wing with grim determination. His face was a mask of professionalism, but the weight of his visits grew heavier with each passing day. He spoke to almost no one, only Camilla and the king's valet had the privilege of entering those heavily guarded chambers where Charles spent most of his days in silence and solitude. Behind those closed doors, Charles wrestled not just with illness, but with the ghosts of history. His path to the throne had been anything but guaranteed. It began with a single act of defiance nearly a century ago, when Edward Roman VII abandoned the crown for love, triggering a chain of events that would redefine the monarchy. His brother George VI reluctantly took the throne, and when he passed away prematurely, a young Elizabeth, unprepared and untrained for the crown, was thrust into power. Charles grew up in her shadow, watching as she shouldered the weight of a nation isolated and bound by duty. He saw the toll it took, the sacrifices she made, and the loneliness that came with it. To him, destiny was not some romantic notion. It was a heavy chain, cold and unyielding. For decades Charles played the waiting game, lingering in the wings as the world around him changed. His every move was scrutinized, his every word measured. When his time finally came, the world he had been prepared for no longer existed. The monarchy was fractured, the family divided, and public trust was hanging by a thread. And just as he began his reign, the unthinkable happened. His doctors delivered a diagnosis that shook the very foundation of his rule. Cancer. Suddenly, time, something Charles once had an abundance of, became a fleeting luxury. He was no longer a prince waiting in the wings. He was a king running out of time. The throne, once a distant dream, was now a burden that demanded swift and decisive action. Charles understood that legacy was fragile, and history was a harsh teacher. He remembered the chaos that followed abdications, the uncertainty that came with sudden deaths, and the instability left behind by unprepared heirs. He had no intention of leaving such chaos for William. His decisions were no longer bound by tradition. They were driven by survival, strategic, emotional, and deeply personal, King Charles's final demand. As King Charles Roman III's health deteriorated rapidly, he knew that time was no longer on his side. For decades he had waited for the crown, enduring a legacy of sacrifice, scandal, and silent duty. Now, at the edge of his reign, his every decision was made with a singular urgency. The monarchy's survival. The weight of history bore down on him, and the urgency became overwhelming. But Charles had a plan, a final command that would force his fractured family to confront their divided future. With each passing day, his voice grew weaker, but the power behind his words only intensified. The stakes were higher than ever. For the monarchy to endure, Charles demanded that his sons come together, not for ceremonial appearances, but for true reconciliation. It wasn't just about securing royal titles or smoothing over family feuds. This was about the very survival of the institution he had dedicated his life to preserving. Charles, with his health hanging by a thread, was clear. The choice was simple: mend the rift or risk seeing the monarchy unravel with his passing. His wish was not a gentle request, but an ultimatum, one that would echo through history. The royal family's fractures had to be healed, or everything Charles had worked for would collapse into dust. Princess Anne was the bearer of this message, and she delivered it with the unwavering conviction of someone who had witnessed the family's turmoil firsthand. There was no room for sentiment, no time for softening the blow. Her words were sharp and final: reconcile or be erased from the royal lineage. It was a command, not a suggestion. As the words hit the room, there was a heavy silence. No one spoke immediately. Prince Harry, smaller than ever, was forced to confront a painful reality. His freedom to defy the royal family had come to an end. His father's health was failing, and his own place within the monarchy was now threatened. It wasn't about media appearances or scandalous headlines. It was about the very core of who he was and whether he would remain part of the royal legacy. With no hesitation, Harry asked, "What does reconcile mean exactly?" His voice was strained, a mix of frustration and confusion. The answer was blunt: come back, apologize, take on royal duties again, and help repair the damage. The monarchy couldn't survive with the rift still open. In other words, Harry was being asked to perform, to act as if everything had been forgotten, to accept the royal image and put aside the pain of the past. The consequences of refusal were made crystal clear: no titles, no inheritance, no protection, no legacy, silence. The king's last act of authority was an ironclad decision that left no room for negotiation. What Harry and Meghan faced was not a matter of politics, but of identity. Without the royal titles, they would become ordinary citizens, vulnerable to the intense scrutiny that had been the hallmark of their lives since stepping away from the royal family. The shock of the ultimatum reverberated throughout the palace. Advisors scrambled, legal documents were rewritten, and discussions about Charles's estate reached a fever pitch. Every condition was laid out for Harry and Meghan: a public show of loyalty, participation in royal events, the suspension of media projects, and perhaps most painfully, a public endorsement of Charles's legacy and Prince William's future reign. But there was one condition that loomed larger than the rest. Harry and Meghan had to comply without any expectation of mutual apologies from the royal family. Would Prince Harry accept this painful demand, or would he walk away from the monarchy forever, and how would he respond to a king's last command, one that could fracture the royal family for good? Stay tuned to see the shocking answer: Prince Harry's dilemma: return to the crown or walk away forever. Under Balmoral's grey skies tension lingered like mist over the hills. The castle's stone walls, steeped in royal secrets, seemed to hold their breath. The royal family waited not just for Prince Harry's decision, but for William's too. Two brothers, bound by blood, yet divided by history, held the monarchy's fate in their hands. Would their answers bring healing or deepen the fractures, shattering the House of Windsor? Harry wandered Balmoral's corridors alone, King Charles's ultimatum weighing heavily with each step. Memories clung to the stone walls. Summers with William, his mother's laughter, and the distant figure of his father, now frail and shadowed by time. But nostalgia had no place here. Charles's command wasn't a request. It was an order: reconcile or be erased. It wasn't unity. It was submission. Locked in a guest room, Harry paced restlessly, ignoring knocks, whispers, and buzzing phone calls. Meghan had called twice, her voice heavy with questions he couldn't answer. Through his window the Highlands stretched endlessly, a stark reminder of how far he had come and how trapped he now felt. This wasn't like 2020's Exit for Freedom. This was colder, binding. The Crown wasn't asking for presents. It demanded obedience. A valet brought him tea, murmuring, "He doesn't have long, your Highness. That's not a rumour." Harry's gaze fixed on the untouched Scotch on the mantel. In another life, maybe this would have been a chance to heal, but that version of him had been worn down, eroded by silence, betrayal, and public spectacle. Rage simmered beneath his calm exterior. This wasn't a homecoming. It was forced surrender. Hours later, Princess Anne entered, her presence as unyielding as Balmoral's stone. She spoke with calculated calmness, outlining Charles's terms: reconciliation without conditions, loyalty without question, unity without resistance. "What did you expect from me?" Harry asked, his voice edged with fury. "After everything, the headlines, the lies, the silence, what did you think I would say? Thank you for forcing me back." Anne's gaze remained steady. "This isn't an invitation, Harry. It's about duty to the Crown, to your family. This is bigger than you—" But Harry's thoughts drifted to Meghan, Archie, and Lyot. What would it mean for them if he surrendered now? Would they be pulled back into the machine that nearly broke them? By evening, Harry wandered through Balmoral's gardens. Mist curled around him like grasping hands, clinging to memories of his mother, her soft voice urging him to dream beyond palace gates. What would she say now? Return to heal old wounds, or hold his ground and protect the life he built away from tradition's iron grip? Meanwhile, across the Atlantic in Montecito, Meghan sat alone in their garden, the phone still warm from their conversation. The ocean breeze whispered through lavender bushes, but her thoughts were far from calm. "He wants us to come back publicly or we lose everything," Harry had said, his voice heavy with the weight of his father's ultimatum. Meghan didn't respond right away. She understood the gravity. She always had. The Crown never truly let go, no matter how far you ran. For hours Meghan sat in silence, penning her thoughts in a notebook. 2 columns stretched across the page, turning and remaining. Under returning, she wrote protection, legacy, reconciliation, and duty. Under remaining, she penned freedom, truth, safety, and peace. It wasn't a simple choice. Returning meant facing scrutiny and an obligation to a family that watched her suffer. But staying away risked severing ties permanently, endangering everything they had built out of defiance and hope. The heir's dilemma, Prince William's decision, and the fate of the monarchy. Under the heavy clouds of Balmoral, Prince William stood at a crossroads that threatened to redefine the monarchy's future. For 41 years he had carried the weight of royal expectations, groomed to be a symbol of stability and tradition. But now, with King Charles's health fading, the choice before him was clear: reconcile with Harry or watch the cracks in the monarchy deepen, possibly beyond repair. Inside the castle walls tension simmered beneath the polished surface. Princess Anne had delivered Charles's ultimatum with the precision of a royal decree. Unity was not merely desired, it was demanded. For William, it wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about the spectacle of it. He was expected to stand shoulder to shoulder with Harry, presenting a united front to the world. Even as old wounds continued to fester beneath the surface, William had perfected the art of composure, smiling for cameras, attending public events, and playing his role flawlessly. But Harry's revelations had left scars deeper than the media could ever comprehend. Documentaries, interviews, and tell-all books had peeled back layers of secrecy, exposing family grievances that William believed should have remained hidden. For him, it wasn't just betrayal. It was a violation of their mother's memory, of their family's fragile unity. Solitude became his escape. He wandered the sprawling grounds of Balmoral alone, tracing familiar paths where he and Harry once played under Diana's watchful eye. Those memories now felt distant shadows of a simpler time. William paused at a stone bridge, its arches stretching over a narrow river, an unspoken metaphor for the chasm that had grown between him and Harry. Charles's plea for unity loomed over him, demanding not just reconciliation, but submission to an illusion of harmony. One evening, Princess Anne requested a private meeting, Her tone was firm and unyielding. "You know what father wants," she began. William's expression hardened. "He's asking me to pretend," he replied flatly. Anne didn't waver. "He's asking you to lead. There's a difference." William scoffed, shaking his head. Lead or lie? She held his gaze. Coexist? She corrected. "You don't have to trust him, but you do have to move forward for the crown for your children." That night William called Kate, who had remained at Adelaide Cottage with their children. She listened quietly, then spoke with gentle firmness. "You know who you are, William," she said. "They don't get to decide that." Her words lingered, a reminder that his legacy would be defined by his own choices. But as William wrestled with his decision, another influence simmered in the background, one far less visible, but equally powerful, because in the shadows of the crown, what role did Queen Camilla truly play, and just how far would she go to secure her place in royal history? Stay tuned. Camilla's Dilemma. Silence, peace, and the price of reconciliation. Camilla sat in the drawing room of Balmoral, the warmth from the fireplace a stark contrast to the coldness she felt inside. Surrounded by portraits of royal ancestors, she couldn't escape the sense of loneliness. As queen consort for less than 2 years, the title weighed heavily on her shoulders. Despite being by Charles's side for decades, she still felt like an outsider in the royal family. Never fully accepted, her influence often met with polite indifference, though she was Charles's confidant and emotional support. With his health declining, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held for her. Camilla had concerns about Harry and Meghan's potential return to the royal fold, though she voiced them subtly. She feared that their presence would create instability given their outspoken criticisms of the monarchy and their desire for change. While Charles understood her reservations, he too felt the pull of fatherhood and longed for a family reunion before his time was up. Camilla never outright opposed him, but quietly advised against welcoming them back, knowing the media storm it would spark. Her relationship with William was respectful but distant, professional yet strained. The tension with Harry was more complex. Once close, their bond had soured as Harry grew resentful of her role in his father's life. Camilla, ever silent in the face of conflict, believed silence to be her strength, though it often left her with an aching heart. She knew that reconciliation would require her to accept Harry, despite his public attacks. Her frustration was clear, but her pragmatic nature reminded her that peace was the ultimate goal, even if it meant pretending the past didn't exist. Public opinion and the search for forgiveness. As King Charles' health began to falter, whispers of his final wishes for his sons, Harry and William, ignited a storm of controversy within the royal family. Leaks and rumors swirled, hinting at a desperate plea for reconciliation, thrusting the fractured brotherhood back into the spotlight. The media seized the narrative with feverish intensity, plastering headlines like Charles's dying wish across tabloids and news screens. Pundits dissected every rumor, while talk shows debated whether the king's alleged ultimatum was a call for unity or a manipulative attempt to force a fractured family back together. Public reaction was swift and divided. Some saw Charles's wish as a heartfelt desire to mend broken ties before it was too late, while others accused him of emotional blackmail, pushing Harry and Meghan back into the fold for the sake of royal appearances. Social media erupted with hashtags like #Unite for Charles and royals on their own, sparking fierce debates on family loyalty versus self-preservation. It wasn't just an online spectacle, it bled into everyday life. In cafes, pubs, and workplaces across Britain, people argued and sympathized, drawing parallels to their family rifts and struggles for forgiveness. As the debate raged on, politicians stayed tight-lipped, careful not to be dragged into the royal maelstrom. Media outlets, however, capitalized on the public's obsession, churning out documentaries revisiting Princess Diana's legacy and dissecting Harry and William's strained relationship. Outside royal residences, well-wishers left handwritten notes calling for healing and unity. their hopes echoing a nationwide yearning for reconciliation. Polls suggested that 58% of the public supported Harry and Meghan's return, seeing it as a path to redemption and closure. Yet, beyond the media frenzy and political caution, the story resonated on a deeper, more human level. It was no longer just royal drama. It was a reflection of family loss and the fragile hope for forgiveness. Now, would Harry and William honor their father's final wish, or would the wounds of the past prove too deep to heal? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.